In this video, we're covering the impact of trust and flow on business and also introducing you to the Talent Dynamics success formula. So these days, trust is more important than ever. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we are passionate about in Remarkable Franchises is trust in franchising. So that if there's trust within the franchise, there's trust between franchisees, there's trust between the franchisor and the franchisees and vice versa. There's trust between the franchisees and their teams and their customers. And there's trust between the customers and the franchise brand. And that there's trust from everybody actually in the franchise sector as a whole. That's something that we're really passionate about. So you'll be seeing a lot about trust as we go through these entire modules and why it's so important for your franchise these days to ensure that you stay relevant, to ensure that you're able to grow, and to ensure that you're around and able to adapt as things change, whether that be in the economy or the business landscape. So let's have a look at them. So when you increase trust and flow, you actually get more results and better results faster than ever before. And we're talking about them actually showing up in your revenue, in your profit, in the sustainability of the business, the capacity of teams, their capabilities. You'll also see it show up with regards to the way that your franchisees are engaged, the way that they collaborate together, and how productive they are, not only in their own business, but also how productive they are within the context of your franchise network and the way that they contribute as well, both short and long term. You'll see it show up in engagement, in motivation, in the way that they prioritize things in their business and set goals, in the way that they communicate not only with their customers, also their teams, and also other franchisees and people in head office. You'll see that leadership improves and that teamwork improves as well. So these are the things that show up when you increase both trust and flow in your business. So we see that franchisees who do increase trust actually get better results than other businesses. They do become more collaborative. They do become more collaborative. They more naturally look outside their own franchise and look to ways that they can contribute to other franchisees, or look at other franchisees and the things that they're doing in their business that they could bring to their own to increase the ease of doing business and also the success that they're achieving in their business. And they add thousands of dollars quite quickly to both their top and bottom lines. So let's have a look at some brands that are really well known and have been really well trusted. And you know what? The most trusted companies do outperform quite significantly, sometimes by up to 10 times their nearest competitor. And the greater the trust that people have in you, the more that they'll return to do business with you. Now that's not only the end consumer, that's also franchisees deciding to stay for another term of their franchise, or recommending other people come and join the franchise, and also your ability to be able to attract new franchisees to your franchise network as well. Now I do want to comment on some of the brands that you see there, and some of them you'll notice are really top companies now, and some of them you go, oh yeah, I remember that company, or maybe if you're a millennial you may not even remember some of them. But what I want to highlight is obviously these days companies like Apple and Google and Amazon are at the forefront of just about everything. Not only do they raise billions and actually now trillions of dollars, and in the last week Apple has actually become the first company in the world to hit $1 trillion. So that's really quite unique, and really it's just the start. We will see more companies reach $1 trillion, and I believe that Amazon is not that far behind and is expected to reach that $1 trillion in the very near future. The thing is, these companies now, the level of trust in them is so high. So like for Apple, the trust in the product is so high that customers camp out overnight before the release of a new iPhone or the Apple Watch or things like that, and they go and line up and buy them sight unseen because of the sustainable trust that Apple has built with their consumers. Apple, Google, and Amazon, not only are they hugely successful companies, but they've actually changed the way we live our lives, such as the impact and the social impact that they have in the world. So really, they're becoming almost legendary. Some of these other companies have created such trust over the years. So companies like Lego, obviously for children's educational toys and fun for children. The Disney Corporation has also built an immense amount of trust over many, many years, and actually over generations as well. Now, you might notice a couple there, so like Rolex. Now, if you don't remember or don't know, Rolex actually make watches, so wristwatches. But these days with technology, once again, it may not even be as known as many other brands, like Apple's and Google's and Amazon and things like that. Obviously, Netflix is another company that could be up there as a very trusted brand. And there are more and more brands that are just starting up now, like Tesla, that either are some of the most trusted brands now or will become some of the most trusted brands. Now, Daimler, the Daimler Mercedes company, obviously a very trusted brand, but many people probably don't even know the Daimler name anymore. So whilst they have built and become some of the world's most trusted brands, it's important that to remain top of mind, to have the biggest influence, and to influence not only the people that actually buy their product, but actually influence generations and influence really the social world. Companies need to remain or become and remain very quick to adapt, very quick to innovate, and relevant in this day and age. And this day and age, as I've mentioned before, it changes so rapidly, week in, year in, all of those types of things. So for these companies to still remain the most trusted in the world, or among the most trusted in the world, they must continue to change and adapt. And you know what? It's so important for franchises to do that too. Now, obviously, there's the innovation in your operations, in your products and services, so I'll leave that up to you to do that. But it's also important that you adapt and innovate and remain relevant with the way that you deal with your franchisees. And that's where we come in, and we're helping you with that. So let's look now at, I guess, the impact of low trust. And by the way, trust is actually a currency now. And as I said, it does show up in companies increasing their revenue all the time. When trust is low, obviously things are going to take longer because productivity is lower and also slower. People's engagement levels are much lower. And when their engagement levels are lower, that's where their motivation levels drop as well. And when sometimes you start to have people that complain, people that disagree, where there's conflict, where there's frustration. So really, low engagement is a risk to your franchise. People start to feel disconnected from the organization and disconnected from each other even. And that's when things like gossip, point scoring becomes important, where people are playing the game of one-upmanship rather than banding together and collaborating. And you know what? It sometimes becomes personal as well, where there's a lot of blame, and also where generally they just have, everything's harder and they have less fun. So really, that impact of losing trust is really cannot be underestimated. And in a little bit, I'm going to talk about what I call the trust bank. I'll get to that in a minute. So where trust is higher, so the benefits of having a high trust, well, I mentioned about the end consumer coming back and buying from you more often because people buy from people they like and trust. But you'll find that performance levels actually increase, and they increase, and people are happier to actually increase their productivity and perform at a higher level as well. And that's because the engagement is high. You'll find that people actually work faster and for longer as well. They're happy to work longer, sometimes even longer hours to do things. And you'll find that delivery of, the delivery actually increases in speed as well. You'll find that then people become more innovative because they're more interested, they're more invested, they're more involved when trust is high. And that enables innovation, regardless of whether they are the ones innovating themselves or whether they just create the space for other people to innovate. And I mentioned, of course, that innovation helps your franchise network remain relevant, whatever's going on in the outside world. Obviously, financial improvements are made that can be really quite significant when trust is increased, and that satisfaction, fulfillment, and happiness is there. And you know what? Everything just feels so much better when trust is high. So let's look at where you're actually trusted most. So you're going to be trusted most where you deliver the most value. There is a correlation between trust and value. So when you can consistently deliver value, that's where you increase trust. And be aware that it is to the degree that you can consistently deliver value is where you're going to be trusted. And where you're the least trusted is where you're going to add the least amount of value. So let's talk about that trust bank. So, as I said, trust is like a currency, and you actually have what's called a trust bank account. So you want to be adding to that by adding value and becoming more and more and more trusted, and increasing the value and increasing the trust that you provide for your franchisees and to your franchise network too. So we're going to help you along the way discover whereabouts you do give the most value and where you are most trusted, and for you to start spending more time on those activities and in those roles and positions, and less amount of time in those areas that you're not naturally trusted for. So let me give you an example of where someone's trust bank has become really high. So with a McDonald's franchisee that we've been working with, he is extraordinarily trusted, not only within his own business, and trusted to become a multi-unit operator, but he's also been trusted to be on committees, to give advice to CEOs, because of his way of collaborating with other franchisees, being able to share information readily, listening to other people, and being trusted by the other franchisees too to represent them on many different committees, and as I said, with the head office as well. Now, one of the reasons that he is so trusted in that is because of the value that he brings, and his natural set of expertise includes previous roles that he's had before becoming a franchisee, so in the areas of PR and marketing, and then being able to utilize those and trusted to utilize those to give comment on upcoming promotions, ideas, and things like that. So the thing is, even if something goes wrong, and even if something, there's a disagreement, or he makes a recommendation that perhaps is not as successful as others, trust might decrease just a tiny bit, but it's just a blip because of the massive value that he's added and the massive amount of trust that he's added consistently, to that particular franchise network. So much so that he's actually won their most prestigious award, not only once, but actually twice, and won other numerous awards too, because of the leadership and the contribution that he's had. So just like when I was talking about Apple before, so Apple once again built enormous trust with their consumers. Now, recently, there was where Apple lost a bit of trust because it was found that they were actually slowing down the performance of the phones. Now, that did cause annoyance and obviously a drop in trust, but not to the point where people went away in droves. It was a blip, they fixed the problem, and the trust has gone back up again. And that's the thing, when trust in you is really high, you can make mistakes and you recover from it. And people just go, look, they've done something wrong, or something not as excellently as what they normally do. Oh well, they must be just having a bad day. And then you perform again the next day the way that you normally do, and that trust stays high. Now, where you deliver low value, people might go, okay, you might be competent in this, but I don't trust you enough to be excellent at it all the time. So on things, so you might want to think about your day-to-day role as well. In your day-to-day role, where do you add the most value? What is it that you're most trusted for? Because you consistently add that value, and that even when you perform less than your best, people will still trust you because they trust that you'll bounce back, or you'll get back up to your normal level of performance very, very quickly. The thing with lower levels of performance and where you don't add that value consistently, when you make a mistake, not only does your trust bank drop, but it probably goes into debit and goes into the red. And you have to work super, super hard to rebuild a level of trust where you're breaking even, let alone to the point where you actually have high value and a high trust bank account. So really look at those things. And once again, if there's any area in your role where you're not perhaps delivering the value that you could, and it's an actual requirement, make sure you do practice that and get up to speed on that as well, so that you're at least in the black when it comes to trust on those levels that are so important. And the thing is, the more that you focus, and the more your franchisees focus on where they add the most value, the greater and the more sustainable trust is going to be in them, even if they're having an off day or an off week or an off month. So please remember that as we move along. So now let's move from trust to the next concept, which is the value of flow, is the concept of flow. So why is flow important? And you can see the river there. All rivers flow from high ground down to low ground. And the reason, what we're looking at here, is them following the path of least resistance. Where you and your franchisees follow the path of least resistance, that's what we call getting more and more in flow, rather than getting stuck, like a river with a dam or whatever. The river, even if there's rocks and challenges and things like that, the river will find a way to flow around it to still get to where it wants to go. This is what we want to be able to do with franchisees, and for you to be able to coach and support them in that regardless of the challenges that they're facing in their business or personally, that they can actually learn to flow around them with greater ease, so that they can still get to where it is that they want to go. So when we say there is flow, so that's flow in someone's performance, flow in someone's business, it means that there's an increase in productivity. It actually speeds up. So it's delivered well, but it's delivered at a higher speed. All right. Accuracy levels improve. Mistakes decrease. Levels of attention also increase. You find that there's more fun because communication is just easier. And I guess it's that word, ease. When there's flow, everything is just done with ease. And you may sort of think of, well, you remember times where you're sort of in the zone. When you're in flow, this is like being in the zone. And when we were talking about the game before, when those rugby players or footy players are in the zone, it's like time stands still sometimes, or it speeds up, or it slows down, or something happens in slow-mo, and everything just seems to happen right. That's what we talk about when somebody is in flow. And it's because there is that connection. So for your franchisees, it's connection in their business, their team, to the organisation, and therefore the results improve dramatically in a way that, it's just easy. So that's flow. So let's look now at the Talent Dynamics Success Formula, and I'll work through this step by step. So we've talked about trust, and trust being a currency, and that you will be most trusted where you're consistently adding the most value. Now, when you're doing that, what happens is it actually shows up in a business in revenue. When you're adding value consistently to a customer in the products and the services that you offer, in a timely manner, that's when you're going to add great value to that particular customer. And also the level of trust that they have in you, not just for a once-off purchase, but actually to come back to you time and time again, shows that they really have that level of trust. All of that is going to show up in those customers actually spending more money with you, which shows up as your top line revenue. Not just in a once-off, but actually also coming back to purchase with you time and time again. So that's where we talk about value measured by trust and showing up as revenue in a business. So we've just talked also about flow, where things are easy, where things are in the zone. Now this relates to the concept of leverage. Leverage is where you actually achieve more in your business with less, so either with less time, with less money, with less people, with less resources, or increasing what you achieve in your business without adding more resources, without adding more costs, more people, more time. That's leverage. And where you have flow means that you're leveraging in the business. Now, where that shows up, of course, is in profitability. The more that you can leverage your top line sales, the greater your profitability. The more that you can leverage and allow things to be done without grating, with more ease, once again, the greater your profitability is going to be. So that's the value and the leverage in a business. Now, where they actually come together is when someone is trusted and that they're actually working in flow with ease. That's when we say that they actually have talent. So talent is not someone's just their natural abilities. It's actually utilizing their natural abilities in a leveraged way that's adding consistent value so that they can really do things well, but also love what they're doing. That's when talent actually shows up in a business. And when wealth actually shows up in a business. So once again, when you're adding revenue, when you're adding profit, we're adding wealth to the business. And what we mean by that is that the business starts to become a sustainable entity, and an entity that is increasing in its asset value. So that's how that all works together. Wealth in a business equals value times leverage. And it's measured by trust and flow, which of course is the talent in the business, and shows up as overall increase in the value of the asset of the business, and obviously things like its saleability and sustainability, because revenue is increasing and because profitability is increasing. So there you have it. That's the Talent Dynamics success formula. And so now let's look at the activities at the end of this section. We've talked a lot about trust and flow and value and leverage. So what we'd like you to do is to do an activity on trust. So think of a time when you've had low trust, whether it's low trust in yourself or low trust in a franchisee. And I'd like you to make note of, well, what was the situation there and why was trust so low, do you think? What did you notice? What was happening? And then what was the flow-on impact of having that low trust? And we're talking about what was the cost of that, whether it be a monetary cost or other costs. So go ahead and do that. And then the second part is I'd like you to think of a time when you've had high trust in yourself or another person or a franchisee. And look at, well, what was the situation there and what made it so different? Why was the trust so high? What were the things that were happening that enabled the trust to be really high? And of course, how is it different so that you had a different on-flow effect as well? And note down what the impact of having that high trust was. So go ahead and do that activity. And then when you finish that, you're ready for the next video.